denying that it fired missiles. Before Mr. Trump boarded air.
And good morning and welcome to the WSJM Morning Show video live stream. I'm Ken Lundberg, and it is, Tuesday, June 24th. And my special guest this morning is none other than Michael Sarola. He is a city commissioner for the city of St. Joseph. Good morning, Commissioner Sarola. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for coming into the WSJM studios. We've been talking about this little issue for a few weeks. It's called parking. So we're glad that you're here to talk about it, and we've been watching your views as they get shared during the city commission meetings as well. What's the latest, greatest update? What happened last night as far as the city was concerned? And bring that just a little bit closer to you.
How's that?
Perfect. It's a weird microphone. It comes from the bottom up. So there you go.
Okay.
What was the latest, greatest? What happened last night?
Well, nothing really changed last night. The paid parking program was paused at a previous meeting.
Yep.
There was some questions from some constituents as to why a motion wasn't passed and why it wasn't done in a format that is more typical to what they normally see.
Okay.
There was nothing nefarious there. It was just the way paid parking was put in place. It gave the city manager a lot of tools to be very nimble with changes, including pausing. So it didn't require a motion, but at the same time, we certainly could have made a motion. So we did last night. We just made it official. The commission's now paused it. It would take commission action to unpause it.
Okay. And it's that last point that I think is significant, because it will now take another vote of the St. Joseph City Commission to unpause the paid parking enforcement. Sure you want to do that?
Well, I think there's been no decision reached as to when or if it will be unpaused.
Okay. If is a big word.
Yeah. First and foremost, we have to address ADA compliance issues.
Okay.
Obviously, that was the official reason to pause them. But you will note that at the same time, our city manager also made note that there needed to be a lot more community engagement, and we wanted to make sure we had the buy-in from major stakeholders downtown. And more residents. So that was always part of the metric in potentially bringing back the program. Since that pause, the city has engaged. I've been part of some of the meetings. I'm not on the parking subgroup, but I've kind of immersed myself in this, as have all the commissioners. It's obviously a very serious thing.
Yeah.
And our city manager and her staff has engaged with, I want to say, 103 businesses. And I think that's the count we have downtown.
Okay.
Haven't gotten responses back from all of them yet. I think they've met with around 30 businesses. I was part of a meeting last Friday with 10 strategic businesses downtown. And I think, again, we're making progress in getting a better understanding of what the stakeholders downtown want and need out of a potential paid parking program. We are gathering information on what missed the mark and what still maybe has some promise as part of some type of paid parking. Just to refresh everyone's memory, the reason we didn't just pick this out of the air, hey, let's go to paid parking. Parking's been an issue in downtown St. Joe for decades. It was identified in the master plan as an issue back in 2016 when we started working on that. The downtown vision plan, which rolled out in 2020, surveys that have gone out to residents in the city and business, and business owners. What's the top issue in St. Joe? It's always parking.
Yeah.
So, and to drill down on that a little bit more, it's always parking in the sense that we're not getting the rotation that's desired. And a lot of it has to do with what's really, it's a problem, but it's a tremendous problem to have. And that's Lake Michigan and Silver Beach and the pier and, the lovely area down below the bluff.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I'm going to run up against a time block here. We've got to get to our local news, but let's continue that conversation.
Okay.
And we can start at kind of the origin story of why that happened after we find out who you are, because I want to give you the opportunity to introduce yourself to those who may not know you.
Okay.
So we'll talk about that and more. It's all coming up right here on the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. It's 7:05, and we're going to have our local news next.
27cash.com, 27cash.com.
WSJM News Now. Team coverage from the WSJM Newsroom on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM.
It's the WSJM Morning Show. Good morning and welcome to your Tuesday morning. It's the 24th day of June. I'm Ken Lundberg, And I've got a special guest in the studio who will be talking with this hour. Good morning, City Commissioner Michael Sarola.
Good morning.
I'm sorry, I keep rolling over your name wrong because my mouth is not working today. I think it's because of the extreme heat outside, so my apologies. St. Joseph City Commissioner Michael Sarola. It's great to have you in studio.
Thank you. Great to be here.
Yeah, we'll be talking about parking issues. We'll talk about downtown St. Joseph. We'll talk about St. Joseph overall and some of the development questions. Huge development proposal on the City Commission's thing last night. How long is that? Do you know how long that's been in the thinking, in the works?
Yeah, well, it's part of the downtown vision plan to look at some of those surface lots that overlook the lake. We're always looking at highest and best use for our property that we do have available for sale. So it's been a goal of the City Commission, even before I was on the commission, to activate those lots and make sure that we get a highest and best use type of program on those. So it's been in the works for some time, but this specific proposal, I think, has been being worked on for more than a year. Yeah.
So we'll talk about that and more on the WSJM Morning Show in just a few moments. You can listen to it on the radio, but if you do that, you're going to miss out some of the behind the scenes conversations that we'll have while the messages are playing. So tune in on our WSJM Smart app, and you can see the full thing on our video live stream on YouTube, on Facebook, on our WSJM Smart app. Okay, we'll get to news in just a moment, and we'll get to that conversation with City Commissioner Michael Sarola. But first off, we are still under an extreme heat warning. It's in effect until 8 o'clock this evening for our region. Today's forecast does call for partly cloudy skies, although we've already got the sunshine burning through right now. Hot and humid conditions are going to persist throughout the day. 30% chance of showers and storms. A high today around 92 degrees. The heat index could get it hotter. West winds 5 to 10 miles per hour. Again, with that extreme heat warning in effect, you're advised not to spend a whole lot of time outside exerting yourself or overexerting yourself without drinking plenty of fluids, taking frequent breaks, resting in the shade, or maybe go find some air-conditioned comfort. So that stays into effect until 8 o'clock this evening. Tonight's forecast, partly cloudy, a 50% chance of showers and storms, a low overnight of 70. And Wednesday's forecast tomorrow, we're looking at another partly sunny one, another hot and humid one, a 50% chance of showers and storms, and a high around 86 degrees. Okay, some of the news that we're following from the WSJM newsroom this morning. A forum on preventing gun violence is set for this Thursday in Benton Township, organized by End Gun Violence, the group, and St. Augustine's Episcopal Church. The event will bring together panelists who will talk about what they've seen in the community recently and how they believe the violence can be stopped. Vicki Schroeder with End Gun Violence tells us the issue is especially relevant in Berrien County.
This area is considered a secondary high-risk area for gun violence. Part of that is the increases in urban gun violence and also rural suicides.
Schroeder is part of Governor Gretchen Whitmer's Gun Violence Prevention Task Force and says part of the forum's goal will be to spread awareness about Michigan's new gun safety laws like those that govern safe storage, but that's not all they'll discuss.
There'll be a short presentation about the area and about what we're seeing around the area, and then a community discussion, question and answer after the presentations to really start the conversation going in the area.
The panelists will include Berrien County Trial Court Family Division Administrator Elvin Gonzalez, Present Pillars Director James Gunter, and Berrien RESA Superintendent Eric Hopstock. Schroeder says the forum will start at 6 p.m. Thursday at St. Augustine's Episcopal Church. It's located on Union Avenue in Benton Township, and the public is invited to attend. We have the heat here. It's making us uncomfortable, but not everyone is uncomfortable in the extreme heat we've experienced this week. MSU Extension grape specialist Mike Renke tells us crops actually do pretty well when it gets hot. He says once the temperatures get above that 90-degree mark, many of the crops sort of shut down, but they experience accelerated growth in the times around those temperature peaks.
The closer it gets to that 90 degrees, the faster the plants like to grow. So the extreme heat during the middle of the day isn't so much a problem, but it really benefits them in the evenings and the mornings.
Of course, Renke says high heat does lead to some other concerns with crops. He says farmers and Mother Nature have to make sure the plants are getting enough water?
While the plants generally seem to like it, the plants, because they're growing so fast, they have strong demands, especially water, because water is used in the plant to move nutrients. And the more the plant is growing, the more nutrients it needs and the more water it needs.
Ranke says coming out of a relatively mild winter, the soil in southwest Michigan is a bit dry right now. So if the extreme heat continues, there will be a concern about crops not getting enough water. For now, though, he says they're okay. He adds growers also have to be careful about applying pesticides when it's this hot because plants could be more sensitive. However, he's not worried about any widespread crop damage as a result of the heat at this point. He says overall, Southwest Michigan agriculture is looking pretty good. And finally, the Alex Mandarino Foundation in St. Joseph has made a $75,000 donation to Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York to help support childhood cancer research. Foundation president and co-founder Tony Mandarino tells us the organization was started to help honor his son, 5-year-old Alex, who died from cancer in 2013 after a courageous battle. Through their experience with Alex, Tony, and Katie Mandarino learned most pediatric cancer treatments have not significantly improved in the past 3 decades.
Through our journey, when Alex was diagnosed, we found how underfunded pediatric cancer research is. So from kind of humble beginnings, we decided to kind of do our part.
The Alex Mandarino Foundation has been raising money to help ever since. After careful consideration, they say they selected the Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center as the recipient of its latest grant. Tony says Alex was treated there.
It's probably the kind of premier center, if you will, for neuroblastoma, and literally families from the entire globe come to Sloan Kettering for that type of treatment.
The Alex Mandarino Foundation raises funds through word of mouth and through community events. Perhaps most well-known is Alex's Duck Duck Run, which was just held on Father's Day weekend in St. Joseph. They also release a special beer each year with North Pier Brewing Company. We have a link for more information on the Alex Mandarino Foundation at our website. That's at WSJM.com. It's 7:12. We've got sports coming up next. It's the WSJM Morning Show, and we want to say a good morning to our special guest who is in the studio this morning. We have St. Joseph City Commissioner Michael Sarola here with us, and we're going to spend the hour talking about a couple of issues affecting St. Joseph. There's this little thing called parking that we've been talking about for a few weeks now. Good morning, Commissioner. It's good to see you.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And before we begin, what I like to ask guests, for those who may not know you already, give us an overview. What's the origin story of Michael Sarola?
Well, I'm a lifelong resident of southwestern Michigan. I'm not from St. Joe. I'm from way down south in Stevensville.
Oh, way down south.
Yeah.
Okay.
So my wife and I moved to St. Joe when we were first married. Our kids grew up in St. Joe, went to St. Joe High School. So I've been here for close to 40 years.
Does that mean you were a Lakeshore Lancer and then your kids went to St. Joe?
It's true.
How does that go?
It worked just fine. We're really fortunate to have 2 outstanding public school systems right here in our backyard.
Nice answer. I like
it's true.
that.
It's really true.
Very good.
What
have you done? Yeah, career-wise, talk to me.
So I was involved in a food brokerage company, started working with them in 1993. I became a partner in the late 90s, bought my partner out in 2009, 2008, somewhere in there. Was the sole owner of that company until 2019 when I sold to our largest domestic supplier. So we imported and exported processed frozen fruits and vegetables.
Okay, very good. Well, we appreciate you being here on the WSJM Morning Show this morning. Maybe you can give us kind of a brief overview. We talked about this on the video live stream a moment ago of what happened with parking last night. It seems like at every St. Joseph City Commission meeting, parking does come up. And for the last few weeks, it's been especially contentious. Business owners and others, stakeholders, very upset about how the paid parking enforcement I guess has been rolled out. But what happened last night, and then we'll get into the nitty gritty of kind of the rollout and everything that's happened since.
Okay. Yeah. Technically nothing changed, but I guess procedurally something did change. There was question after the last meeting in which paid parking was paused, the fashion in which it was done. The city manager paused parking without a motion. Our city attorney indicated it wasn't necessary based on how paid parking was put in place. But I think it gave the impression that there was something nefarious going on. Why are you doing this differently than other ways you typically conduct business? So I made a motion last night to officially pause paid parking, and we had a second. So it's now officially paused.
Unanimous vote.
Correct.
Okay. And so what that you said, technically nothing changes, but technically one thing does change and is significant. It now allows the city commission to be that, I guess the dam between the reservoir and the downstream. So if you decide to not start parking again, that's up to the city commission, or when you decide to start paid parking enforcement again.
That's correct. That's correct. I never got the feeling it would be anything different than that. I think our city manager was certainly going to not only get the input of the commission, but all the major stakeholders in the city and a lot more residents. And I think that's a threshold that we've all discussed is necessary to overcome if paid parking comes back and when.
Okay.
We're definitely going to need to do it in a fashion that gets the buy-in of stakeholders.
You seem like someone who chooses his words carefully. You said if paid parking comes back.
Well, it's not guaranteed. It's not guaranteed. It's something that's being looked at.
Okay, we'll talk about that more in depth in just a moment on the WSJM Morning Show at 7:16. We're going to continue this conversation right now on our video live stream. That's on YouTube, it's on Facebook, it's on our WSJM app, and right now we also have sports here on the radio with Dave Wolf.
Indiana.
You're making news this morning.
I don't like to make news.
Good morning again, and welcome to the video live stream. We're talking with City Commissioner Michael Sarola, and Gianna Siemens says, good morning, Mike.
Good morning.
So she's watching the video live stream. Bernice Mason is out there. She says, good morning as well. Reach over here and get my fourth mouse. Let's see. Yeah, so we've got some other folks watching on the video live stream. For those who don't have the benefit of tracking the parking issue, where did it start? How did we get to where we are right now?
Well, like I started to say before, it started decades ago. We've had parking challenges in downtown St. Joe. It was identified in the master plan that was done in 2016, in the downtown vision plan in 2020. There were surveys that went out to residents and business owners multiple times over the last several years. Parking is always at the top of the list. And it really is probably the largest challenge is that we've got beautiful Lake Michigan, Silver Beach, and the pier below the bluff. It's a tremendous attraction. The county has a parking lot that accommodates 200 cars roughly, not nearly enough. So often people come, park up top on the bluff, take out their coolers, their strollers, their beach chairs, and lumber down to the beach for a full day. And there was a lot of free all day parking in downtown St. Joe. The negative side of that was those spots are really designed for people to come patronize our businesses, right?
Mm-hmm.
Be it restaurants, retail shops, fast serve to go type ice cream shops. There just wasn't enough rotation. So the paid parking was designed to get that rotation. Was the idea? It was the initial idea. The side benefit was it was going to generate some revenue for the city. It was not the intended goal, but it was a side benefit. Certainly, that was looked at.
So the rotation for the ongoing business revenue generation was the ultimate outcome that you were shooting for.
Correct.
Or did the city overshoot by going directly to a paid parking enforcement rather than take a look at other ways that it could get that rotation?
Yeah, there was discussion given to time limits on parking spots.
Right.
If you put a 3-hour time limit on a lot of spots, it would then make it difficult to lumber down to the beach, come back, move your car. Then I think you have to look at what's the repercussion if you violate that. Our ticket prices I think were $10, which is basically a parking fee down at the county lot or less. So there could have been other ways to address that. In hindsight, it could have been changing the time allotment for parking spaces and probably stiffening the fines, and that's something that's even being looked at now in hindsight. But I think there was a belief that the paid parking was going to accomplish what we wanted, both in terms of getting that movement, getting that rotation, and again, the side benefit was some revenue to the city.
Yeah, I mean, we've got to get back to the air here in just a moment, but it seems like you used one of those bombs that we dropped on Iran over the weekend to solve a mosquito problem.
I would respectfully disagree with that.
Okay.
I really felt like this wasn't a knee-jerk decision. This was talked about for a long time.
Yeah.
I think there was over a dozen community engagement meetings held at City Commission, or excuse me, Commission chambers. Unfortunately, they weren't that well attended, and I think lesson learned here is you can't just merely post things and let people know that there's a chance to engage in a policy.
Yeah.
You have to really get the buy-in of the stakeholders. And I think the mistake won't be made again, whether it's with regard to parking or any other major change in the downtown area. We need to mobilize and go to the businesses. We need to make every effort to sit down with the business owners and with property owners downtown, and then as residents as well, because they were all impacted.
Okay, we'll talk about that rollout and some of the retrospect in just a moment, and some more of that right here on the WSJM Morning Show. We've got to get back to the airwaves at 7:20 on your Tuesday, June 24th. The video live stream continues where you're getting exclusive content. We're going to return to the radio airwaves right now.
WSJM.
Thanks for staying with us. It's 7:20. It's the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg, and my guest this morning in the WSJM studios is Michael Sarola. He is the city commissioner for the city of St. Joseph, and we're talking about the parking issue. On the video live stream, we just talked a little bit about how we got to where we are today. And part of what you're talking about, Commissioner Sarola, was the rollout itself. And you mentioned a couple of different times that in retrospect, some mistakes were made.
No question.
And I mean, what are the key mistake I think you mentioned was stakeholder engagement.
Correct.
How can you do that better so that the stakeholders are heard? Because we've seen in the city commission meetings, business owner after business owner after employee after resident, they're testifying, they're giving their public comment that this is not the right solution.
Right.
How do you avoid that in the future going forward? What happened this time that it didn't get told?
Yeah, and again, as we were saying before we went live on air here,
Yeah.
There were at least a dozen attempts to engage business owners and property owners downtown and residents. There was an open invite to any of those people to come to commission chambers and have dialogue and input. I think the lesson learned is we need to engage people where they are. If you're a business owner, a small business owner, you're really involved in survival in general. And you're right. We have seasonal businesses.
Yeah.
Everybody's very busy. We need to go to them. We identified, in hindsight, there's 103 businesses downtown. As I'd mentioned to you previously, we've reached out to all of them, or 91 of them as of last Friday. 58 hadn't responded. There were 21 meetings held. There were 12 more meetings scheduled. 12 had not been contacted, but probably have by now because these numbers were as of last Friday.
Yeah.
And I think there's an understanding that we need to meet business owners and property owners where they are, not ask them to come to us.
Yeah. What are you hearing in these follow-up meetings?
Surprisingly, there is the majority of the meetings are not against the idea of paid parking. They're against the idea of paid parking as we rolled it out.
Okay.
So I think
what's the difference there?
Well, for example, things that we've actually already changed. The 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. was over aggressive. Something that was discussed. I know I questioned it in the beginning. If the idea is to get the beachgoers to move, there's not people coming to park up top at 5 or 6 o'clock. Now I'm talking about the restaurant crowd. So I think that was maybe an overshoot there. It's already been changed.
Yep.
Starting on May 15th and going to September 15th, not necessary because we don't really get busy till Memorial Day at best, and that's weather dependent, as we saw this year.
Right.
And at Labor Day, things really calm down. So those are two obvious things which have already been changed. Okay.
And so do you still support the idea of having a paid parking enforcement situation in downtown?
I'm open to the idea. I'm going to fall short of support at this point. I think it's really going to depend on the buy-in of the stakeholders downtown and residents. We have to get far past that 50% threshold. And you asked, how is it received at these meetings? And as I started to allude, there's more people in favor of paid parking than you would think, right? It's the vocal people at the meetings are the people that are the hard nose. I see some of the people that I've had meetings with that are not opposed to the idea in the crowd. They don't talk. It's become very aggressive in some of those meetings. If you're a business owner, you've got to be really careful about protecting your business. I understand that.
Sure.
Again, I think the idea of paid parking is not as frowned on as the way we rolled it out. there's got to be a lot of nuanced changes, and that's the listening tour that we're engaged in right now, particularly the parking subcommittee and our city staff.
Are there who's responsible for the poor rollout?
We all have to take blame for it. At the end of the day, all 5 commissioners voted yes on a proposal that was defined. The details weren't really available until a few days before the vote. That's not an excuse. I read through them. I didn't pick up a lot of these things as a potential problem. So I think we all have to bear the responsibility of a failed rollout. Certainly, staff that was involved, parking subcommittee, which included people that were part of the DDA. So there's enough blame to go around.
Okay. We're talking with City Commissioner Michael Sarola, St. Joseph City Commission. We're talking about the paid parking enforcement issue. It's currently on pause, and city crews have been busy either covering signs or removing signs so that there's no confusion among that. It's nice to see a crowded downtown.
It is.
It's nice to see it. Do you, on taking a look at the paid parking enforcement, the primary objective, as you mentioned, was to get that rotation in parking so that the business owners could see more foot traffic, different foot traffic coming through, and you wouldn't have folks who are going to the beach park up, in the middle of downtown and just leave their car there all day, not generating any revenue. And the pause, it seems, happened for ADA compliance review, but the pause also happened right before perhaps we saw the busiest times in
Right.
downtown St. Joseph. So how do you approach looking at data, looking for data of, is this really going to work? Is it going to work like we thought it might?
Right. Well, there's no question the parking program had an influence on how busy or unbusy downtown was.
Yeah.
But there were other factors. Again, I'm not making excuses, but we had a really cold end of May, beginning of June. Memorial Day was a week early. There were a number of factors. I thought to myself as I drive, on the weekends I drive through town, just checking what's going on down there, our traffic flow, how busy it is. And it was great to see this last weekend. In fact, I think on Saturday might have been the busiest day I've seen downtown on a non-holiday. To the fact that it was well over capacity. That presented some of its own challenges. But I was thinking to myself as I was driving through, I wonder if paid parking were still in place, if we would see any empty spots, because it was a product of the perfect day on a Saturday. It was hot. There was a lot of built up intent to get out and enjoy the weather. So, I wonder if what we might have seen. I think we probably would have seen a full downtown, but not over capacity. That said, our business owners can't survive on a few hot days, right? We need to make sure that we're as inviting as we can be, not only between Memorial Day and Labor Day, but on those shoulder seasons as well, if we want to have a vibrant downtown full of businesses.
Yeah. And you're right. I mean, I drove downtown. Stephanie and I, my wife and I, we drove downtown on Saturday evening, probably around a little before 5 o'clock. And you're right. I mean, I had never seen the town so busy on a non-holiday weekend. It was great to see.
Right.
And I wondered the same thing: is if paid parking were in effect, would the plates from Iowa, from Illinois, from Wisconsin, from Colorado, we saw all these, would they have been okay with the paid parking regimen? So do you see a point where paid parking enforcement returns this summer?
It's hard to say. Again, it's not just going to be a decision made by a handful of people. It's going to be with the input of the stakeholders downtown, with the input of residents, and it's going to have to pass a bar that has a high degree of support. If we don't have support from our stakeholders, no matter what we put in place, it will fail.
How do you measure that support?
Well, I think the engagement, the one-on-one engagement that we have been having and continue to have. There are some subgroups. There's a group of 6. There's a group of 10 separate business owners that we tend to meet with that are prominent businesses downtown. We're getting their input both collectively and individually. So I think it's about touching everyone that this impacts and trying to draw some conclusions.
Yeah. Okay. We're talking with City Commissioner Michael Sarola. We're going to come back and wrap up probably the paid parking enforcement situation. We'll talk about that in a moment. We'll also talk about some development proposals that are happening around downtown and the overall budget. One of the things that Commissioner Sarola came prepared with this morning is to talk about everything that we have in the city, which is great, but it also costs money. So we'll talk about those things and more money in just a few moments right here on the WSJM Morning Show. We're going to keep this conversation going on the video live stream right now. We'll be back on the radio in a few minutes.
Protect your home and auto with a bundle from Progressive.
Yeah, thank you so much, Commissioner Sarola, for being so candid about what's going on with the paid parking enforcement situation. And again, the original objective was the rotation of traffic so that those parking spots would be taken, hopefully, by people who would have an opportunity to spend money in downtown.
Correct.
And a lot of people have said, well, it's just another money grab by the city trying to look for another source of revenue. Is that the case?
It is not a money grab. Not at all.
Yeah. Because so far, I imagine with the cost of installation and everything else, we're probably under the line.
Yeah.
We're in the red.
I don't know what those numbers are. There's going to be plenty of time to go back and analyze that. But one of the other challenges, and we didn't talk about it, is we have a finite amount of parking spaces downtown, and the reality is we have 450 to 500 people during a weekday shift of employees downtown. And a lot of those employees were parking in prime spots.
Yeah.
And a lot of business owners says, hey, we've got to get a plan in place that encourages them to park farther away so we can open these up for, again, people to patronize our businesses. That was one of the positives, right? It was a negative in that there was some frustration with some people crossing Main Street is a challenge. Residents down south of the city saw their streets, which are only normally busy with parking there during beach days.
Yeah.
But they were starting to be busy all the time.
Yeah.
So there was some positives there. And immediately when the paid parking was paused, I had some building owners and I had some business owners sending me pictures and video of employees coming into parking lots and meandering over to their job and complaining about that. So you get both sides of it. It's like, see, we're right back to where we were. It's a challenge. Again, finite amount of spaces. St. Joe's a unique town in that we're completely bordered by water. We've got the lake to the west. We've got the river to the north. We've got, the river that wraps around a little bit to the east. And then we have a lot of tributaries that feed that river that become basically unbuildable, right? So although the footprint of St. Joe is probably average for a city, the amount of space that we have to develop is very finite. We don't have a lot of it left.
Okay. We're talking with Commissioner Michael Sarola, City of St. Joseph, and I was just looking at some of the comments that have come in on the video live stream. Richard says, DDA throwing them, well, he said under the bus. What role is the Downtown Development Authority played in this?
It wasn't my intent. My point was that they had a voice in this. There's a DDA board, which is supposed to represent the downtown businesses, and those board members voted affirmative for paid parking.
Yeah.
So again, maybe there was a disconnect there. Maybe they weren't engaged as they should have been on that one-on-one basis. Maybe the details of paid parking were incorrect, but it wasn't as though the commission just arbitrarily plucked this idea out of the sky and said, we're gonna do it. These 5 people are going to make this decision. There was a lot of engagement, including the DDA. So my goal was not to throw anyone under the bus, only to highlight that there was engagement at that level.
Appreciate that. We talked about this earlier in the week. Chalk tires. Can't chalk tires anymore to check timing.
No.
Because it ruled unconstitutional. Are there ways to monitor timed parking?
There are. We have a vehicle. You've probably seen it downtown with
the RoboCop
with a million cameras on it, and that's what that does. It it remembers through a computer program what vehicle is there, tracks it by license plate number.
Okay.
As they drive around, it's noting this spot is a 2-hour or 3-hour, what have you. So yeah, there is opportunity to do that. But I think you go back to our fine structure that we had, as I mentioned before. I think it was $10 for a parking ticket, and it didn't have enough teeth in it to get the desired result.
Jack it up to 50.
You weren't changing behaviors that way, and certainly that's an option that's now being considered.
Okay, all right. Back with more in our interview with Commissioner Michael Sarola in just a moment at 7:34. It's the WSJM Morning Show. Back with some news from ABC, our weather forecast, a local news preview, and sports here on WSJM.
consistently learning, personally growing, and helping others. If this sounds like you or someone you know, make your nomination for this year's 40 Under 40 right now at moodyonthemarket.com. That's moodyonthemarket.com.
The Morning Show with Ken and Friends on 94.9 WSJM.
7:34, it's the WSJM Morning Show. Good morning. Continuing the conversation with City Commissioner Michael Sarola. He is St. Joseph City Commissioner, and we will continue that conversation in just a moment. We've got to get some news from ABC in our local news preview. Forecast for today does call for another hot and humid one. We are under an extreme heat warning until 8 o'clock this evening. So again, limit your time outdoors if you can, and if you are outside, make sure you take frequent breaks. You're hydrating, plenty of liquid water, that is, not alcohol, that kind of stuff. And then also get yourself inside to some air-conditioned comfort to cool down periodically, because heat stroke and heat illness, heat-related illness, it's a cumulative thing. So it raises your body temperature. You might not even know it before you become sick. So do be careful of that. And check on your vulnerable neighbors as well. That includes young people and elderly adults as well. Partly cloudy skies today, hot and humid, a 30% chance of showers and storms as a cold front tries to get in here. We'll see if it makes its way in. High around 92 degrees today, and winds out of the west 5 to 10 miles per hour. Tonight's forecast, partly cloudy, a 50% chance of showers and storms, a low around 70. And Wednesday's forecast, partly sunny, hot and humid, a 50% chance of showers and storms, a high around 86. Continuing our conversation with Michael Sarola here in just a moment. He's a city commissioner for St. Joseph. That's here on WSJM.
ABC News, I'm Chuck Sievertson. Hours after President Trump announced that a ceasefire between Iran and Israel was in effect. This is one of two missile attacks against Israel early this a.m. Israel blaming Iran, promising a response. Iran is denying that it fired missiles. Before Mr. Trump boarded Air Force One to go to a NATO summit this past hour, he told reporters, quote, "They violated it," meaning Iran, "but Israel violated it too. I'm not happy with Israel." And
we basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what they're doing. Do you understand that?
the U.S. chief exec now off to the Netherlands. The Supreme Court clears the way for the Trump administration to deport some people in the country to any other country. More 100-degree temps today from Texas to Maine. A few hours, Midtown Oklahoma City goes wild for their new NBA champs. This is ABC News.
WSJM News Now. Team coverage from the WSJM Newsroom on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM.
It's the WSJM Morning Show. Good morning. I'm Ken Lundberg. Thanks so much for joining us. It's 7:37. Some of the news that we'll have at 8 o'clock. A major mixed-use commercial and residential development has been proposed for downtown St. Joseph. City commissioners last night heard from Peter Renks of the Renks Group, who wants to buy the city-owned lot at the corner of Lake Boulevard and Broad Street. The project would involve the privately owned former YWCA lot at 508 Pleasant Street and the city's adjacent lot. We'll talk a little bit more about that project with City Commissioner Michael Sarola here in just a moment, and some of the development options in downtown. Also, paid parking in downtown St. Joseph, as we've been talking about this hour, is officially paused, and the City Commission has officially paused it as well. It was already paused by the city manager, but the City Commission weighed in last night and unanimously put their pause on it as well. That means it will take an act of the City Commission to unpause the paid parking enforcement. And finally, Silver Beach County Park in St. Joseph back open after police shut it down early on Sunday due to some fights. The Berrien County Sheriff's Department is looking for anyone with cell phone video of that altercation. They need some help in identifying some of the individuals. So those stories and more coming up at 8 o'clock this morning, right here on the WSJM Morning Show. It's 7:38, continuing a conversation with Michael Sarola, City Commissioner for St. Joseph. That's happening right now on our video live stream.
The Michigan News Network.
Okay. So you might have seen me holding a map on the video live stream, and what this is, Commissioner Sarola, you had someone prepare this, and let's see if people can see it. It's basically the what is St. Joseph, and what's in purple there, or magenta, or whatever it is city properties that don't pay city property tax. Correct?
They don't pay property tax.
Property tax, I should say.
Correct.
And that's because either they're city owned or a nonprofit or something, a government owned, that kind of thing.
Correct.
Okay. And so what's the illustration here is quite powerful. But what's your takeaway from it?
Yeah, and the pointing having, I had this feeling, so I asked that we create this, and it confirmed what I thought. And it's not to say we want to kick out hospitals and churches and nonprofits and museums and so forth out of the city. It's just to say this is our reality, and we have to be very careful with the property that we do have left. And as I mentioned, we're always looking for highest and best use for city-owned property, and that's why the early stages of the approval we gave last night for the development by the Rinks Group is so important. It's going to bring 100 residents to downtown. We know that we had a study done that says we can have up to 900 additional residents, or we needed 900 additional residents in the city of St. Joe or in St. Joe. It's going to bring some needed punch to the economy in downtown. There's studies done that show each residence provides $10,000 of economic impact to the downtown area. If you have a residence downtown, there's 100 of them. So there's a lot of things going on. And most importantly, with parking being such a hot topic, it is a parking neutral project. So there are 100 residents. There's a space per residence, 100 spaces. And then in the current surface lot, there are 57 spaces. The Rinks Group has guaranteed that their development will provide at least 157 spaces. So they will cover every resident that is there as part of the new development, plus the 57 that are there now. And that will be some surface lot that's part of the first floor and some of it down below ground.
So doing the simple math, 100 residences and 157 lots. So you're looking at roughly 1.5 spots per resident, or per residence.
The current ordinance is 1-to-1.
Okay.
So the 57 is replacing the surface lots that are now there. So
I see.
So for open parking, we don't go backwards.
So none of this would remain available to the public.
The 57 spots.
The 57 would?
Correct.
Okay. And where would those be constructed under this?
Well, again, the plan's not done,
right.
Not approved.
It's very early.
Part of it, the suggestion is that part of it would be on the ground floor, but encompassed inside the building. Part of them would be a floor down, underground.
Okay. So free underground parking for residents?
Well, depends what the parking program is.
Yeah. Right.
It would fall in line with whatever else the city's doing at that time.
Okay. And the Rinks Group is out of South Bend. I've looked at some of their work, and I think they own some property already in St. Joseph.
Yeah, I think they've done a couple developments. I believe they were the original developers of the Jimmy John's building, and the apartments above.
Okay. Okay. So they've got a proven track record. And as far as the breakdown between condos and apartment rentals, and those apartments would be not really cost controlled, but they'd be in a certain category, right?
Yeah. We learned last night, I think there's 65 apartments and 35 condos, something along that line. Could be a few off. The apartments are going to be 120% of the average income level, so would be eligible for that. So I think in St. Joe, I think the number was mentioned around $68,000. We're looking at working professionals, teachers, nurses, so forth. Those would be the target audience for those apartments.
Okay, and height wise, I saw something in there that said they want to build higher than 50 but lower than 80 some odd feet.
Yeah, I think.
But the plan is not fully baked yet.
Not fully baked at all. So yeah, I every developer is going to have to look at this, and it's going to have to make economic sense, which includes a height element to it. You can't do one floor at what the cost of development is and make economic sense.
So as it's been explained to you so far, you like what you see?
I like very much what I see.
Okay.
I've enjoyed getting to know the folks from the Rinks Group. They have been very open and honest with the city about what their intentions are. And again, we refer back to the city master plan. We refer back to the downtown vision plan, and really they've used that as their toolbox in forming how they're going to develop this property.
Okay. We'll be back in just a moment at 7:44 on the WSJM Morning Show.
In the low to mid 80s, we still have scattered showers and storms. I'm Chief Meteorologist Carrie Peugeot.
The Morning Show with Ken and Friends on 94.9 WSJM.
744 WSJM Morning Show continues. Good morning. Our special guest in studio this morning is St. Joseph City Commissioner Michael Sarola. And we were just talking a bit about some of the property tax issues happening in St. Joseph, and some of the properties that frankly don't contribute to the property tax that helps the city take care of what they need to take care of. We also talked about the Marquette development that's proposed in downtown on the former YWCA property and the adjacent city lot there. So we talked about the parking there, but also we've been talking about a lot of budget numbers and a lot of special projects. So Commissioner Sarola, special projects, you had a list put together.
Yeah, so as part of the budget process in May, Ben Reynolds, our finance director, at my request, put together a list of the top 20 special projects that we have coming down the line, and our budget goes out through 2031. These special projects have a footprint in fiscal year 2026 through 31, or at least one or all of those years. The total for those 20 projects is just under $92 million. There are several, around $46 million worth of them: combined sewer overflow project, Main Street reconstruction, lead service line replacement, Upton Drive reconstruction project, and Botham Avenue. Those are all unfunded state mandates. We don't have a choice on those. We have to do them. The state gives us a timeline to get them done, and they don't really tell us how we have to pay for
fund
that.
it. Yeah.
So, in the past, the city of St. Joe had done reasonably well in grant requests with the state. Over the last 6 or 7 years, we've seen the amount of grants coming to St. Joe diminish. They have a program, disadvantaged community status. I think actually they call it overburdened community and significantly overburdened. The overburdened community status is based on per capita income, and it gives you 20 basis points on grant requests. If you're significantly overburdened, it's another 25 basis points. That is such an advantage on grants that no matter how good the need is, I don't know how big the need is, no matter how good the project is, we can't overcome those things because we're fortunate enough not to be an overburdened community. And it's not a graduated system. It's not as if you are 80% of the way to overburdened, you get 80% of the funds. It's a pass or fail.
Okay.
So it's caused some real challenges, particularly as we look at these state unfunded mandates, to the tune of $46 million over the next 6 years, plus another roughly $46 million of projects that are not mandated by the state, but they're certainly required. We're undergoing a $17 million upgrade to our water plant, and who's going to argue with safe, clean water, right?
Right,
We have to do that. We're having our clarifiers replaced. We're having, that water plant was built 8 decades ago, and it needs major upgrade. So we're undergoing those to the tune of $17 million.
Yeah. So you paint a picture. You paint a pretty bleak picture about how we're going to fund these. What's the solution?
Yeah, and let me back up. It's not as bleak as it sounds. Certainly, there's a lot of money there, but there's a metric that the state uses to determine what a municipality is eligible for in terms of financing, right? In terms of seeking bonds. Right now, the city of St. Joe, we just paid off one bond. We have one left, and it's around $3 million. It might be slightly over. The state says we can borrow up to $82 million. So, we've been really fiscally responsible as a state. The residents aren't leveraged hard against the future, but we can see these things coming. So how are we going to do this? Well, we're going to bond out 10 or 15 or 20 years. Right now, we're strategically waiting to see what interest rates do, hoping that they come down. There's no point in engaging in a bond before you need the money.
Right.
So again, Ben Reynolds, our finance director, has done a tremendous job of kind of laying this out. That, coupled with our asset management plan that Tim Zebel has been very instrumental in putting together, we now have a much clearer picture of what our needs are and when those needs hit our books. So, we feel like we've got a handle on that. We feel like it's something that we can take care of through a bond program. But at the same time, we have to watch the inflow and outflow of our dollars.
Yeah. So laying the groundwork for a bond proposal, when do you think that could come up?
Oh, I would imagine there will probably be multiple bond proposals. I don't think it's going to be one big bond. It's going to be based on the need, timing, and the project timing. So my guess is I don't know how Ben's going to do that, but my guess is we'll see maybe 2 or 3 items grouped together.
And part of this too, and we've been discussing the proposed development that was unveiled pretty much to the public last night. Pockets had been hearing about it, but at the former YWCA property on Pleasant Street and Lake Boulevard. But there's been a lot of folks who have come to me and said, St. Joseph, part of its problem is it can't define its identity. Is it a tourist town? Is it a company town? And then there's another contingent that just says, this is St. No. Welcome to St. No, SIF.
Right.
Is that your view?
That we're St. No?
Yeah.
I don't believe, I believe we probably earned that title in the past. I think that this commission and the leadership at the city now is looking at every opportunity. Again, I think we learned a tremendous lesson through the paid parking about getting more engagement from the community, getting the buy-in to stakeholders, and making sure that we have the support of the community. Because anything we look at that sounds like a good idea to move forward, if the balance of the community doesn't feel positively about it, it will fail.
Yeah. Okay. I'm talking with City Commissioner Michael Sarola, City Commissioner for St. Joseph. Let's make this part of our Moody on the Market update. It's brought to you by Insurance Management Service. Call IMS today. They are your local auto owners insurance agency in St. Joseph and in Niles. Again, we're talking with City Commissioner Michael Sarola. So if you could wave a magic wand, not that you can, but if you could, what would you do with St. Joseph? What would you push forward for the city here in the next 60, 90 days as far as parking is concerned?
Yeah, as far as parking is concerned, again, I keep going back to community engagement. We have 103 businesses. We've contacted 91. We've been through these numbers already. Haven't heard from 58. These numbers were as of Friday. We've had 21 meetings. 12 more meetings are scheduled. We're going to continue on that listening tour, and we're going to gather that information and that data. We're going to collect it, and then we're going to migrate it into a cohesive idea moving forward. And I think we take that idea back to those stakeholders and say, this is what we're thinking. Yeah. I think that's the only way forward. We have to have buy-in from the community. Otherwise, whatever we entertain going forward will not fail, or will fail and will not be successful.
Yeah. You've talked already about how the rollout was poorly done. Is that an accurate assessment?
It was an unfortunate rollout.
Okay. And you're very kind. An unfortunate rollout. Does the paid parking enforcement look the same if the pause is lifted?
No. It's
and I guess what I mean in the area, because I know you've already mentioned there have been some changes from the hours and from some of the city lots, but does it encompass the whole of downtown? And is it the way that we saw it rolled out the first time?
Yeah, I don't want to get ahead of myself. Again, I'm not even on the parking subcommittee, so they may have information I don't have. But my engagement with business owners, and my engagement, my one-on-one engagement with the city manager, we've had a lot of discussions about this.
Yeah,
I think it's going to look markedly different than it did in the initial rollout. I don't know what shape that's going to take. I'd like to give you more information. It's not that I'm holding cards close to the vest. We just don't know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good thing.
Okay.
We don't know what it's going to look like. We don't know when it's going to come back, or if it's going to come back. We're in the process of assessing that right now.
Okay. We're talking with St. Joseph City Commissioner Michael Sarola. That's part of our Moody on the Market update for this morning, for this hour. It's brought to you by Insurance Management Service. Call IMS today, your local auto owners insurance agency in St. Joseph and in Niles. And we'll continue this conversation. We'll wrap it up here in the next 7 minutes before news from ABC at 8 o'clock.
Insurance Management Service.
So much to talk about. Back on the video live stream. Special projects, potential for bond proposals. How are we doing as a city overall? Do you like what you see as far as the future goes? Are we a tourist community? Are we a company community? What are we?
Well, I think we're certainly migrating towards a tourist community. We have a tremendous asset in Lake Michigan and Silver Beach. We need to leverage it. We talked about a little bit when I first came in here about the fact that one thing we have to be careful of. We've had a lot of very generous people in the city of St. Joe give the city a lot of really amazing things. The walking bridge is a great example. The Compass Fountain and the Carousel building, which the city owns, but was tied to a 105-year lease with very specific parameters. Things that are given. We have 17 parks in the city of St. Joe. things that are free aren't free, right? It still costs the city to maintain these things. I think we've spent around $1.4 million in maintenance of the walking bridge, which is pretty close to my house. I use it almost every day. I love it. It's a tremendous feature. I'm not suggesting we pull it out or that we're disappointed that the Howard family gave us the money to put it in. It's just a reality we have to be careful of. And, when people talk about the city of St. Joe and inflows of money, I think they'd be surprised to know we collected just over $30 million in taxes for the city of St. Joe. Only 11.7 million of that stays in the city. The rest goes to the state and various other places. And then with the part that comes to the city, there are all those line item breakdowns on your tax bill, right? There's money that goes to the DDA. There's money that goes to the band. There's money that goes to the library. There's money that goes to the rubbish fund and streets fund. Almost $4 million goes to Berrien County. So you start breaking that all down. Of the 30 million, the part that hits our general city operating budget is under 7 million.
Wow.
And when you start talking about, $92 million worth of special projects, that doesn't include operating the city, cold patching holes, which, is always insufficient, right? Our roads are in bad shape. We're an old municipality. There's a lot of upgrade that needs to happen. So it's challenging. Do I feel good about it for the future? Yes. I think we got a tremendous finance director in place that's guiding us through this. We just need to be really mindful of the inflows and outflows of our cash.
Yeah, very much so. All right, City Commissioner Michael Sarola, we'll talk about wrapping up this conversation here in just a moment on the WSJM Morning Show.
With the times, you're playing the lute. Yeah, and it sounds pretty good, right?
Discover is accepted at 99% of places that take credit cards nationwide. Based on the February 2024 Nielsen Report.
The Morning Show with Ken Lundberg on WSJM.
We can say that on the air, too. Sure. Yeah. Good morning and welcome back to the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. Thanks to those of you who have been watching on the video live stream. You've been treated to quite the conversation this hour. St. Joseph City Commissioner Michael Sarola has been my guest. We've talked about paid parking. We've talked about development in St. Joe. We've talked about the moniker of St. Noseph, which you don't agree with. Well, maybe in the past you have.
Don't forget Tantown. People call it
Tantown.
Yep.
I've not heard Tantown.
Yeah. It's out there.
But it's a beautiful part of Southwest Michigan. We love it. And, despite all the controversy, I think we can all come together that St. Joe is a great place to be.
For sure.
Commissioner Sarola, so parting thoughts, parting words about everything that you've experienced over the last, I guess, few months while being a city commissioner.
Well, I think one of the things I'd like to talk about is the fact that at every commission meeting, we have public comments. They are comments. We don't respond to them. Some people think that that's disengagement or that we don't care. They're not set up to be a dialogue. But I've proposed to our city manager that every other meeting, we have a section that does create dialogue. I think even in this conversation today, we've bounced around a lot of different topics. There's time constraints to not cover them all in detail. But I think we've gotten a lot of things on the table, and I hope it leads to further dialogue. There's a lot of information that I think the city needs to share with its residents, the business owners, building owners in downtown. There's a lot of dialogue that needs to happen, and for whatever reason, it hasn't happened. And I think I'm hoping that this is a catalyst to open up those lines of communication, be it one-on-one, be it in a group format. Certainly, we love participation at commission meetings. But I think it needs to be more dialogue based. For the commission to sit and listen, because they are public comments, with no reaction, again, gives the false narrative that we don't care or we're not listening. That's not the case. That's just how those meetings are set up. But I think we need to engage in a dialogue back and forth. We need to answer questions on the spot with the caveat that, hey, they might be incorrect. We'll have to circle back to some of these things and verify the accuracy. But I think we have to have that open dialogue.
Yeah. And it really underscores kind of the difference between a city commission meeting where you've got an agenda of things to consider and things to vote on and so forth, and take public comment on. Correct. But also the difference between that and a town hall meeting. A town hall meeting is where you put topics on the table and the public has their opportunity to do this. I think in watching this, and there's nothing wrong with it, but in watching some of these city commission meetings, it feels like those have been more of a town hall than they have been a city commission meeting, which you guys are very patient. Well, most of you are very patient with the public comments.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up?
No, I just want to echo what you said. St. Joe is a great place to live. We see that by the amount of people that want to come and visit. I don't want to paint a bad picture with regard to the finance of the city. Every municipality up and down the state is challenged if it's an older municipality. I feel like we have the right leadership in place to address these things. Again, we just have to be very careful about what moves we make going forward and make sure it's in the best economic interest of the city.
St. Joseph City Commissioner Michael Sarola, thank you very much. It's 8 o'clock.
From ABC News, I'm Chuck Severson. In the wee hours overnight in the East, President.
Let's wrap up on the video live stream. Thanks again for coming in today. We appreciate you sharing the information. Next step on the paid parking, do you have a time frame in mind of when?
We don't.
Okay.
Don't. Again, the metric is going to be on input from the stakeholders, input from the residents, and coming to some kind of consensus on how we move forward.
Okay. Well, thank you for doing that. We appreciate it. And thanks for your public service.
Thank you.
All right. City Commissioner Michael Sarola, we appreciate you coming in. If you missed any part of this, you can catch it all on the video live stream and share it with friends. All right. Thank you. We'll be back next hour with more news.
What they're doing. Do you understand that?
U.S. Chief Exec now off to the Netherlands. After the initial news of the